All right, my friends, welcome back. It is January 1st, 2025, the beginning of a new year. And today I'm going to share with you a few of my New Year's resolutions, or really the only ones that I've made. I haven't made more than I'm going to share with you here. And they're very simple. But I'm going to give them to you because I think it'll help you. I'm hoping that it'll help me. And I'm not a big New Year's resolution guy. I typically don't make them for the most part. But I've read a couple of eye-opening, life-changing books this year that have brought to light that there's a few things I need to work on. And I'm going to attempt to do that to the best of my ability. I'm going to give it my greatest effort. And I'm probably going to talk about these things as the year progresses because they made such an impact on me. Some of these things made such an impact on me that it's going to stick with me for a while, and I hope it will with you too. So are you looking forward to 2025? Are you anticipating good things, or are you meeting it with intrepidation? 2024 was a memorable year. A lot of things went on. Of course, election years are always memorable. At least I think so. There's a good number of people that are really hyper-focused on that kind of thing. I just take it in stride and hope for the best. But there's a lot of other things that went on. Of course, the latest thing that people are paying attention to now are the drones in the sky in New Jersey. That's a rabbit hole to go down, isn't it? And I've really enjoyed looking into that quite a bit. And so now I have new opinions and new thoughts about things I never did before. And in some cases, I've changed my mind. But besides that, if you're a Floridian, life was challenging in 2024 with the hurricanes that we've had, the flooding and the destruction. And of course, this comes around every so often, but you don't forget these kinds of things. So, yeah, there's been a number of things that have occurred, and I hope that you're relatively unscathed and remain so going forward into 2025. But we all get kind of beat up by life, and life throws us curveballs all the time. So I'm always concerned about how to navigate things and how to get through the turmoils and vicissitudes of life the best way that I can. All right, so here's the 3 goals that I have for 2025. All right, so number 1 is I want to stop complaining. Okay, I want to stop complaining, not just a little bit. I mean, I want to stop it altogether. Now, what spawns this idea or this endeavor is a book that I picked up earlier this year called A Complaint-Free World, written by Bowen. I'm going to leave a link for this in the description down below, along with another book, because these are tremendously good books. Every human being should read these, okay? Easy to read, but it's a great challenge that he presents. Now, Complaint-Free World is about how to stop complaining and start living. Sounds very, very much like Dale Carnegie's book about how to stop worrying and start living. But, Bowen attacks it from a different angle. He was a former minister, and he fell upon this idea for himself because of some very challenging things that occurred in his life. And he details that, lines it out for you in there. It's all very interesting, but the crux of the book is a 21-day challenge that he throws out there to everyone. He's kind of started a community and an organization, and he does a lot of public speaking. And he actually, if you embrace this enough, and I'm halfway considering this, if you embrace this enough, you can actually become affiliated with his organization and become a public speaker on their behalf and go around the country doing this, or maybe around the world, I don't know. But I'm so bought into this that I'm strongly considering it. Now, here's what the 21-day challenge is. You get a purple wristband. I don't have one. I don't know if I will get one or not. I probably will. But I don't know if you even need one, but it's a tangible token to remind you of where you are in your journey. The 21-day challenge, what it does is you have this purple wristband on one wrist, and you try to not complain at all. No verbal and no written complaints. No verbal and no written complaints. Now, you might think to yourself, I'm not much of a complainer. And I've always thought to myself, yeah, I complain, but I wouldn't define myself as a complainer. Wait till you try to attempt this, and you're going to find out something different about yourself. You complain a lot more than you realize. It's surprising to me how many things fall under the heading of complaints. When you're trying to go for zero complaints, you become acutely aware of everything you say and do. In fact, you have to think about everything you say before you speak it. I mean, it becomes that important, because every time you complain, you have to switch the wristband from one wrist to the other, and the 21-day challenge starts all over again. It takes some people years to be able to complete this. It's hard to go one single day without complaining, without even just one complaint. Now, I find this enthralling because many years ago, when I was a very young man, it might have been before I was even 20 years old. I don't really remember exactly. I think it was. And somehow or another, through my Bible studies, I had kind of fallen upon this idea myself, but I didn't focus in on it as much as Will Bowen is talking about. He actually has a very thorough game plan for this. And I really just made it my goal to go without a day or without a week. And I noticed back then that it changed my life. But somewhere along the line, I fell off the wagon and lost track of it and just kind of forgot about it after all these years. But when I saw this book on the shelf, I was drawn to the cover, and then I saw the title and I thought, wow, that really dredges up some memories. And I thought, oh, I'll read it. I'll go through it. And as I read it, I was just captivated by it. And I think you will be too. Now, here's what ending all complaining will do. Now, this is not everything it will do. I just want to highlight 3 things because you won't remember more than 3 things that I mentioned. Okay, so I'm just going to give you 3 things that stopping complaining will do for you. Number 1, I had to put on my reading glasses. Okay, so number 1 is it will nurture gratefulness. We focus so much nowadays on positive thinking. We talk about it all the time. But we oftentimes forget that one of the ways to be positive is just to stop complaining altogether. Stop airing your grievances to everybody and about everything. And you might say to yourself, well, I don't do that about everybody and everything. Well, stop doing it about anything or anybody. Okay? You'll find out real quick that when you give up complaining, your mouth has to do something else. You have to substitute something else in its place. So we naturally revert to gratefulness. And you have to do that more or less because it just seems to be pretty much the natural thing to do. So if you want to be a positive thinker and a positive person, stop complaining, start being grateful, count your blessings. The next thing that I have in my notes here is it will improve relationships. Why? Because one of the things that we gripe about the most is the people that we're in relationships with. And we oftentimes level our complaints directly to them. And when you stop complaining to your spouse or your girlfriend, your boyfriend, the person you're in a relationship with, when you stop doing that, it naturally just makes it better. And I will tell you that while I was reading this book and I was really making an effort to do this, I noticed immediately that it was making a difference in my relationship with my family. And it wasn't one of those things that I verbalized to them. I didn't tell them I was doing this. Because it wasn't my intention to change anything on their end. But I could tell that they noticed a difference in me. Even if they weren't consciously thinking about it, it was there. And so it really did make things better because when I'm not... Here's the thing. Here's what's the natural question that's going to arise in someone's mind is, well, does that mean that I just bury my head in the sand and I don't confront problems? No, not at all. You don't put blinders on. You don't just let things go. But when you bring things up and it doesn't come across as a complaint or as a gripe, or as whining, it's much easier to deal with. Now, you're not responsible for how the other person takes it, but you are responsible for how you express yourself. Now, here's the thing. A complaint is really just, it's more about the spirit and the energy with which you say things or with which you write things. That's how you know what a complaint is. So oftentimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And that's where the difference is made. So it will result in better interpersonal relationships. And then the third thing I wrote down here was to help us to focus beyond the problems. Okay? So you'll hear many people say, I've just got to vent my spleen. I've got to get this out of my system. I just got to tell somebody about this. And we think that's going to improve something. Complaining never improves anything. It actually makes things worse. It makes, it really does. It's self-perpetuating is what it is. It never takes you on an upward trajectory. It always takes you down. So if you stop complaining, and you might have to grit your teeth doing it, but if you stop complaining, then your brain, like remember I said before, your mouth has to do something else. Your brain has to do something else too. What it does is it starts firing different neurons, and you start focusing on how to fix the problem rather than just saying, hey, listen, I want you to hear how I feel about you, or this or that, the other. If you don't do that, then your mind automatically reverts to how to fix the problem. So it does make some things go away. So in 2025, I really, really want to focus on not complaining anymore. And I'm gonna do the 21-day challenge. I haven't complained so far today, and it doesn't mean that anybody has to be around. You can complain to yourself. Oftentimes I talk to myself a lot. There are times when I complain to myself, and if you do that, that counts. So I'm going to take the 21-day challenge. I think it's going to take me a very, very long time to accomplishment, but this is, maybe it'll take me 365 days. All right. So that's my first resolution. So the second resolution that I have is I want to focus on living in the moment. Why I'm doing this is because of the second book that I read that was a real game changer for me, and it's called The Courage to Be Disliked, written by Ichiro Kishimi. It's a Japanese translation, and it's the book is written in dialogue form. So the whole entire book is just a conversation between a philosopher / psychologist with a student. Him and a student are bantering back and forth in a very, I guess you would call that a Socratic method. Just very, very conversational. And when I started reading it, I had no idea that that's how it was going to be laid out. And I thought, this is a little funny. And I really enjoyed the book, though, because I saw a lot of myself in the student. You also see yourself in the philosopher. And the philosopher is trying to teach the student all about Adlerian philosophy. Alfred Adler was a philosopher from, probably like a century ago. He died maybe more than, I think, 50 years ago. But he had a different way of thinking than Jung and Freud did. And he more or less does line up with a lot of what Marcus Aurelius talks about, how we are responsible for how we perceive the world and for what we do with the information that we take in. And that makes all the difference to us. So he's very informative that way. He gave me a lot to think about. He said some things that I bristled at, but then I had to kind of come to grips with and say, I think he's right. So one of the things he really focuses on is living in the moment. But, we hear people talk about this, and the question always comes up, for me at least, is, well, how do we do that? So I've written down a few of the things he's talked about here. Number one is stop reliving the past. Stop reliving the past. Stop playing over and over again in your head like a reel the things that have occurred to you that you're not pleased with. Maybe you have some trauma. Maybe you have some disappointments, some letdowns, some discouragements. Stop playing them over and over again on a loop in your head, because they don't exist anymore. They exist, but only in your mind. And they're there because you assign some particular value to them. And you might even look back in the past with some reminiscence and think that things were better back then than they are now, which really makes you kind of disappoint the present that you're living in currently. So our minds are never where they ought to be. So stop reliving the past and stop playing it on a reel. The other thing is stop idealizing the future. This is where goals, if they're not thought about correctly, can actually become a detriment. You know, sometimes things happen to us that we don't like. Interruptions occur, impediments are laid in our path, and they turn out to be some of the best things that ever happened to us. They actually form and shape our character in a better way than meeting any of our goals ever could. So goals are really downplayed in this book to some degree. And he's not saying that you shouldn't have them or work on them, but that they shouldn't be the be-all, end-all. And I bring that up because it's one of the ways we idealize the future. Well, if I could make $1 million, if I could have a more fit body, if I could have better relationships with my family, if they would only change, so on and so forth. If things would just work out the way I have them crafted in my mind in the future, then everything would be Jake. But that's just not the case a lot of times. So we got to stop idealizing the future. And I want to start affirming flexible goals, which kind of goes along with what I just said. It's okay to make goals, but we have to be flexible with them. And when I say that, I'm not talking to you, really, I'm talking to myself. I have all sorts of goals, but I tend to love structure, which requires some rigidity that is impractical. And so while life does force me to have some flexibility or to practice some flexibility, a lot of times I'm not happy about it. I want to do what I think I ought to be doing according to the plan that I have set. And I have no idea whether the map I had charted out for myself is really the best thing for me. I just think it is because I've convinced myself that it is, or somebody else has said it is because it worked for them. So what I need to do is I need to focus more on affirming flexible goals. Okay? And then the last one under this heading is I need to acknowledge the wins more often. Yeah, I need to acknowledge the wins. Now, I know it sounds like I have more than 3 resolutions here, but these are just subheadings under the 3 main ones. So, you know, under living the moment and talking about how to do that, one of the ways I'm going to fulfill living the moment is I'm going to acknowledge the wins. How many times have good things happened to you and you completely missed it because your head wasn't in the present? I mean, things do occur to you on a daily basis that are actually quite positive, and you're not seeing them. I'm not seeing them because my mind is somewhere else. It's further off in the day or the night or the week or the year, or it's living in the past. I'm feeling bitter and resentful towards somebody because of something I think they did to me, or maybe something didn't go my way, but I'm not thinking about what's actually going on in the here and now. And there's really positive things happening. I need to really acknowledge them more. In fact, I'm going to start journaling this year for the first time. And one of the things I'm going to do is acknowledge the wins that occur in my day, no matter how small they might seem. Like, for instance, several months ago, the storage space facility that I have a space with let me know they're going to raise my rates again. And on top of that, they're going to put one of their own locks on in addition to the one we have on there, and they're going to charge me every month for that lock. And I wasn't happy about that. And I went to the storage facility to see if they had put the new lock on and possibly take off my old lock. And it's a space I really just have for my oldest daughter. But when I got there, there was another man walking around with his wife over there, and he was stark raving mad because he was having a hard time getting into his own space because the code they gave him for that new lock that they put on wasn't working. He was just going off about it. And when he was talking to me about it, I said, listen, everything's fixable. It's going to be okay. You're going to fall over of a heart attack, man, because he was literally turning red, sweating, and he's like, yeah, they keep raising the rates, and then they charge us for the locks they put on there on top of it. And he's right about everything he said. But then he also said, watch what they do. They're going to lower the rates. They're going to lower the rates in a few months because the only reason they raised them because of all the hurricanes that we had and people were trying to store their stuff quickly because their houses are being remodeled or reconstructed or whatever the case might be. And so this influx caused them to raise the rates, but they'll lower them again. So I'm thinking to myself, well, then what's the problem? He said, I'll bet you if you go in there and you ask them to give you the online deal, they'll lower your rate. And I'm like, well, then I still don't know what the problem is. And if you know you can do that, then why don't you do it? But he just wanted to rant and rave. So I thought about this, and when you go into the office now, it's just a virtual clerk. There's nobody in there. You walk up to the screen, and someone comes online and talks to you virtually. So I told the guy, I said, listen, I can't get into my space because my code's not working either. Can you help me with that? I was just very calm about it. He says, yeah, sure, we'll get you set up. So we got that resolved, and he said, is there anything I can help you with? I said, well, I do have one more question. I said, listen, is it possible that you could lower my rate? I have an outdoor unit. It's not air conditioned, and you guys raised it to $150 a month from like $124. Do you think you could lower the rate for me? I said, now it's possible that you might not be able to. You answer to people higher than you, and so this might be a very difficult thing for you to do, and if you can't do it, I understand, that's fine. I thought I'd just throw something against the wall to see if it would stick. And it'd be really cool if you could help me, but if you can't, that's okay too. He's like, well, let me see. He says, yes, I can. He lowered my rate to lower than what I'm paying now. I mean, it was going to go up January 1st today to $150. I've been paying like $124. He lowered it to $116. So I was real happy about that. But that's a win. That's a win. I was just really grateful when I walked out the door, and I gave him a 5-star review on the things they send you, these reviews they send you. And so yeah, I mean, it's incredible when you don't complain about something and you stay calm and you approach something without whining and just live in the moment and just be okay with whatever the moment gives you, regardless of how things turn out. Sometimes you actually get your way, you get a win. Okay, so that was really living in the moment was my second resolution. So my third one is I want to concentrate on being useful. Concentrate on being useful, because in this book, he points out that our usefulness and our value, our personal value, is defined by how useful we are in our community and in our society. And you might bristle at that and think, I think that's wrong. No, I think he's right. We need to learn to be useful. We need to learn to contribute to this world that we live in. If we're giving nothing back and we're just taking, we have no value. We're just a parasite. We're just a parasite. So I really want to contribute to the world, which I feel like I'm doing through my YouTube channel. But I really want to be mindful of that, okay? So I want to concentrate on being useful by creating meaningful work, which I feel like I do through my YouTube channel, but I can do it on my job and in any other way. How can I be creating meaningful work, and no matter what I do, it's taking pride in what I set my hand to do. And then I want to focus on my own task. He really drives this point home in the book, and he says, listen, you have to not be focused on the tasks that other people are responsible for, but rather just your own. And I really had to stop and think about this one for a while. One of the biggest I think one of the problems that I have is I'm somewhat of a people pleaser, and I'm not proud of that. That's not something that people are ever proud of, in my opinion. But I am somewhat of a people pleaser, and people pleasers take other people's task upon themselves, and they shouldn't. And people are not asking them to. But we feel like we can somehow control the outcome of things if we can make other people happy, if we can make them comfortable, if we can create positive environments for them to live in. And oftentimes we just can't. And we have to give other people the opportunity to live with the consequences of their own decisions. It's also about just letting life take its own course and not trying to correct everything. I just need to focus on doing what I do to the best of my ability and being responsible for my own thoughts, words, and actions. That's what I mean about focusing on my own task. Basically, that's it. I want to stop complaining. I want to live in the moment, and I want to concentrate on being useful. Besides that, I just want to ride my motorcycle more, and I want to make more videos. That's about it. So anyway, that's where I'm coming from. That's my New Year's resolutions. I know that was long-winded. It's not what I intended, but there you go. Now you have it, and I hope that's helped you. Leave a comment down below. Give me your thoughts, and if you have something useful and constructive to say it. Don't keep it to yourself. But anyway, thank you for watching, guys. I really appreciate you. I've been doing this probably about, I think, nine years now. And some of you have stuck with me all through that time. And it's been a fun ride so far, and I anticipate not quitting anytime soon, if ever. So I hope you enjoy the ride and take this journey with me. And I'll catch you in the next one. In the meantime, be wise.